All right, well, it is now 8:30, and everybody, welcome to another week of the Municipal Project, hosted by the Freedom Democratic Party with Pastor Hull, and as our fearless leader, Pastor Hull, you can go ahead and get us started, sir.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is another great day for us, part of the Municipal Project.
This meeting is being recorded.
I'm happy that all of you are on the line with us. You've been with us since the very beginning, several of you, most of you, and you're still here. Just want to do a couple of things. First of all, I want to remind you that after we finish this round of training, which will end up in June, after we finish up this round of training, we will immediately begin to make plans for September, when we'll have another little bit more extended round of training so that we can bring more people in. I can tell you once again that we do have a very influential Southeastern nation, and they are very interested in us conducting training in the whole Southeastern region. So we are still trying to work on that. The other thing I'd like to remind us is that once you become a part of the Municipal Project, we want you to stay with us. We know that you are on the receiving end right now, but as we move further into the end of this project, and as we move into the second phase of the Municipal Project, we want to ask you to stay involved, stay engaged, be a part of it, be ready to share your learning and your experiences and what you've gotten out of these sessions. Finally, I don't want to just be redundant about why we're here. I think you know why we're here, but I do want to say I am absolutely dismayed at the turnout in municipal elections. And it just confirms to me in my mind, heart, and spirit why this project and people like us are so vitally needed. The turnout really, and I'm not a naysayer, I'm just trying to be a realist this morning. It's abysmal. It's absolutely abysmal. I mean, we're getting, for example, in the Tupelo last city council runoff race, where you've got 3,200 people, registered voters. A candidate won her runoff election with 360 votes. Now she was a good candidate. She was a candidate, but 360 votes out of 3,200. The incumbent, and she beat an incumbent. The incumbent only had 196. That tells me that no matter how rewarding, how energetic, how good this Saturday morning training is making us feel, we have a lot of work to do, a lot of work. And so I just want us to bear in mind, and I'm hoping that each and every one of you, Dr. Allen, Brother Young, will win your races so that we can kind of, stick a feather in our caps as we go down the road, that we had a little bit to do with your success. But then you are going to have to help us expand this concept, reach more people, go deeper and not wide. And so I'm not going to go on. I know Brother Stamps he's eager. He's got a burning desire to share this morning. So I'm going to turn it back over to him. I would like to say this much. We are blessed, pleased, and honored to have as our presenter this morning, Dr. Oshanda Harris Allen, who is a member of the Municipal Project. When we were doing our planning sessions, Dr. Allen mentioned that Tupelo College, for which she works, actually has done some organizing before, community organizing, grassroots organizing. And so we kind of put her on the spot and asked her if she would do 2 sessions on grassroots organizing, resource development, community organizing. And so she's our presenter this morning. If Brother Stamps wants to expand on that introduction, fine, but I'm eager to see what Dr. Allen has for us. Brother Stamps?
Well, just briefly, don't want to get in the way of Dr. Allen at all. I just had one announcement to make is several years ago, there was an effort made to bridge the gap. And over years, we've done this over the years to bridge the gap between Africa and the African diaspora. The African diaspora consists of African descended folks from around the world who are disconnected in several ways. So the African Union is a consortium of African nations who come together to work together. And the African Union has appointed a prime minister specifically focused on the African diaspora. And Prime Minister 10 is having a Zoom call this morning at 11 o'clock our time to, it's a continuation of a working group of a political caucus of political leaders from around the world to start working together. They formed several committees to try to create trade lines and a resource base between the African diaspora and the continent of Africa. Just like other nationalities, they come to America, they put hotels together, and then they bridge that gap by connecting and staying interconnected with their homeland, and it keeps their homeland stable, and it allows them to be stable whether they're in America. That same thing needs to happen with Africans in the African diaspora. And so the African Union's Pan-African Caucus will be meeting today at 11. I'm going to put the link to that Zoom, to that meeting, if anyone would like to participate and help in that regard, you're welcome to do so. And I will put that in the Zoom link. But without further ado, we got a great presenter today, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stage, our very own good doctor. Hello, doctor. How you doing, Dr. Harris Allen?
I'm doing well. Very excited to be here today. Very excited to discuss community organizing, because we all know in order to get things done within the community, we must organize to try to make sure, and we also have to see it through. So, DeKeither Stamps, am I going to be able to share my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I'll do that right now. We could just go ahead and get started. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best. Even though my teacher had his own, I am going to try not to go over time. So just please, just let me know, when my time is almost up. Wave your hand, say, hey, Dr. Allen, you only got a minute or two. So I can speed it on up and get through. So for everyone that's listening, good morning, hello. Today we're going to be talking about community organizing, what is and how to. And for those who do not know me, I am an associate professor of education. I'm the director of professional programs. I'm a grantee for the Institute for the Study of Modern Day Slavery. And I'm also the Harriet Tubman student mentee at Tougaloo College. So before we get started, I decided, since my teacher had us on this morning, to do a KWLQ. And I just want you to think about these things. Think about why, what do we know about community organizing? What do we know? And if you're able to jot some things down, go ahead, take a minute and write it down. What do we want to learn about community organizing? Because sometimes there are things that we don't know. No one is an expert at community organizing. No one is perfect as it relates to community organizing, but we all can work together for the cause to organize a community. What did we learn about community organizing? So what are your takeaways? Think about that. What do you want to learn? And then at the end, what did we learn? And once you've written down or you jotted down or you put in your brain what you learned about community organizing, you still may have some questions that you want to ask. So what questions do we still have about community organizing? So just take a minute, think about it. What do we know and what do we want to learn about community organizing? So first, we have to know, what is community organizing? What is it? And so I was doing my research, and these are the 3 working definitions that we normally use while at work or even in the community now today. So I pulled it from 3 different sources. Community organizing is the practice of listening to and mobilizing people to make their community a better place. That came from INRC. And INRC is a community organizing group in Indiana. Community organizing is devoted to restoring a democracy at the grassroots level and energizing citizens to become a more active member of their society. Community organizers focus on fixing broken social systems, bringing about meaningful change to people's lives, and empowering vulnerable or oppressed populations. Community organizing has the goal of uniting local citizens around a common concern. This reference came from the Social Work Degree Guide, which is actually a toolkit that a lot of people use as it relates to community organizing. Community organizing is one of the core tools to rally mass momentum for social transformation. Community organizing can include tactics such as changing policy, challenging how public resources are allocated, and transforming realities on the ground. And that reference came from the Racial Equity Toolkit. So, why do we put our boots on the ground? Why do we believe in community organizing? Well, first, we must listen to people. We have to be good listeners, and we must be able to communicate with people. We put our boots on the ground to clarify common goals, framing strategies for action, leadership development. In our community, we have a lot of leaders, but sometimes we don't take the opportunity to mentor them, to act at their full potential, mobilizing the community, relationship building. Build a relationship with the businesses, the families, and the individuals within your community. Education. We must be able to educate people about the resources that are within our communities. And of course, if you're able to educate them, you can provide those resources. Collaboration. Being able to collaborate with business within and outside your community, because sometimes you run across a community that may not have a doctor's office, or you may run across a community that does not have a Parks and Rec department. So you have to be able to collaborate with other communities for some of those resources to better enhance the community. And most importantly, for equity, equality, and social change. So I've broken up community organizing into an OAS, and that's organize, advocate, communicate, and evaluate. So today, we're going to discuss organizing and advocating. And for our next session, we'll discuss communicating and evaluating. So organizing oftentimes can be divided into 3 dimensions. Locality development, which involves as many people as possible within the community to define their goals and help eliminate social justice issues. Social planning, a process to help try to solve community problems or improve conditions in the community by devising and implementing policies intended to have certain results. Or social action, to advocate for change and establish laws, customs, or patterns of behavior to benefit a specific population, solve a social problem, or enhance people's well-being. So steps in organizing. First, you have to build your team. So community organizing may start off as just one person, but we all know one person cannot do it by themselves. It takes a community. So you have to start off by building your team. After you build your team of key people or people who truly have your vision at sight, then you all can work together to engage the community. And when we engage the community, we may go out, we might have town hall meetings, we might give out surveys, we might just start an email blast or a text chain. Because while engaging our community, we must define our goals. What is it our community needs? What are the resources that we need to bring to our community? What are the issues that are going on within our community? And once that is completed, we must engage the public. We have to let the public know what our needs are so they can be met. So we must need a strong organizer. Organizers must have certain characteristics. They must be able to network with other people in and outside of their community. Again, they have to be good listeners. They have to have excellent communication skills. And their communication skills must be non-violent. Verbal and physical must be non-violent. And that's why I said we must have good communication skills. We must listen. We have to let the people of whom we're talking to, we have to let them know we're listening. We have to make sure our body language is appropriate when communicating. We must be able to cooperate with our team and people within our community. We also must be able to provide social care, and that's being able to provide non-medical resources. So if someone, is having an issue with their water at their home, they may say, oh my goodness, I have a leak. It's in my front yard. I don't know what to do. We must be able to let them know who to contact. And if we don't personally know who to contact, then who can we contact to give them that information? And I can just give an example of that. I ran across a young lady, very sweet woman, very nice lady. And she actually did have a leak in her yard. So not knowing that she lives in one city, but it's another city that controls her sewer and water. She had constantly been in contact with Public Works, but it was the wrong Public Works. So just being able to refer those people to the proper resources. And you must be able to educate. You have to be able to educate, or must be able to educate those within your community on the different resources that are within that particular community and some that are outside the community. So right now, as you all can see, it's the community needs, issues, and or concerns form. And this actually can be put into a Word document. It can be put into a Google document, whatever type of document you think that will work for your community. And I have different issues that the public can vote on. What are their top 3 to 5 priorities or needs, issues, or concerns? So we have healthcare, we have education, taxes, income, recycling facilities, better roads. We have leisure facilities, parks and recreation, mayor youth advisory council, law enforcement, public works. The form, the sheet is based upon your community. So everyone's form may not look the same. They all look kind of, mostly for the most part, generally have some of the same information on it. But if you decided you wanted to create this particular form for your community within some type of documentation, always leave room for people to write something in. And that's why at the bottom of the form, you see other, because there may be some issues in the community that we necessarily don't know about. So they'll be able to write those issues in, then we can come back and we can aggregate the data, and then we can see what are the top 3 to 5 concerns within our community. So if you want to screenshot this, or if you want to take a picture of it, by all means, please do so. Or if you want the actual document or form that was created to pass out to members of the community, just let Mr. Hull or Mr. Stamps know, and we'll make sure you get that information.
Dr. Reynolds.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
When it's time to use or implement this form in the process of your organizing?
Okay, so after you have developed your team, and your team doesn't have to be big, it could be 3 to 5 to 10 people. But after you have a team, now it's time to find out what are the community needs. So right now, I'm going door to door. Right? I'm also a candidate for Alderman at Large here in Byron, Mississippi. So I'm just asking people, and I have the form in my phone. And so I'm just asking people, you know, what are the needs? What are some of the issues that you're having? Sometimes they come out and tell me without me even asking. But for those who are not candidates and you just want a grassroots organization, once you put your team together and you're ready to go out into the public, have this form with you. That way you can organize around these particular issues. You could do it via town hall meeting. You could do it via Zoom. And if you do it via Zoom, you can always create a Word document, and you could drop the link within the chat, and they could go ahead and fill it out while you're actually on the Zoom meeting. You could, if you're going door to door, you can have it with you and they can fill it out right there. It's really up to the particular team within that community on how they want to give it out. And it's no bad time to do it, but before you actually begin to organize around an issue, you must know what those issues are. You have to prioritize, because communities may have 50 different issues, but you can't solve all 50 in 1 year. So I always tell people, well, let's just focus on the top 3 to 5. Let's prioritize those, put them in order. This is top priority number 1, number 2, number 3. And so once we start talking to lawmakers or writing letters to whomever that can help us resolve these issues, we can do it in the proper order based on priority. Did I answer your question, Mr. Hull?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. I put myself on mute. Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
Okay, so I have a box in there I didn't mean to put in there. My apologies. But what is an advocate? Don't look at that stuff in the yellow. But what is an advocate? An advocate is one who steps forward and speaks out on behalf of the client system in order to promote fair and equitable treatment or gain needed resources. So basically, when we talk about advocacy, those who advocate are advocates. Does that make sense? So talking about advocacy, those who are in the community who are advocates, who are advocating, are actually advocates. And advocacy is an active intervention on a client system's behalf to get needed resources that are currently unavailable, or to change regulations or policies that negatively affect that client's system. So why are we advocating? Why am I an advocate, or why are you an advocate? Because we want to change regulations that affect us negatively, or we want to provide more resources to our community. It just depends on each individual community. And so there is a to-do list when it comes to advocacy. You have to assess the environment. And that's what you're doing when you hand out that form or that list, or you provide that list to people with your top priorities. You must create an advocacy plan. Now I have my list. Now I know what my top 3 to 5 priorities are. What is my plan to make sure these needs are met? Then you have to develop your message. You need an elevator pitch, because even though we have this plan that might be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or even 10 pages, when we go talk to people, they're not going to want you to read to them a 10-page document or even a 3-page document. So you need to be able to put that advocacy plan in an elevator pitch, what can be 2.5 minutes. I mean, not 2.5 minutes. It can be 2 minutes, 30 seconds. It can be 3 minutes. It can be 5 minutes. Normally, an elevator pitch is 5 minutes or less. So try to put your advocacy plan within a elevator pitch where we can say everything we need to say within 3 to 5 minutes, because we're going to start engaging the community, and we're going to do this through media. And so if someone records me doing an elevator pitch or talking about my plan or what's needed for my community, they might not listen to me on social media any longer than 3 minutes. So that's one reason why you need to narrow it down. Also, we have to engage the policymakers. And from what I've learned in the past, policymakers want to know who, what, where, when, and why. They don't want all the extra fluff. They just want to know who, what, where, when, and why. And you wrap that up in one paragraph, they're actually really happy about that. Correct me if I'm wrong, to keep the stamps.
How? How is it going to benefit my constituents? How is it going to work? Who, what, when, where, why, and how?
And how. Thank you. So let's talk about developing this plan. And I actually asked Stephanie Bundle to share with us today, so she'll be sharing with us in just a minute. But let's talk about developing this plan. And this is the meat of conversation today. So first, we have to be able to identify and understand our topic, or instead of saying the topic, our priorities, right? So what are our priorities? Who do these priorities affect? Because if the priorities only affect, let's say you got 12,000 people in your city and the priorities only affect 500, then that might not be a top priority. That's for a specific community. So we can still keep that on our list, but your top priorities first, let's focus on what is going to have the greatest impact within the entire community or within the entire city. So you just have to weigh it. What's the scale of topic? Is it a national issue? Is it a local issue? Or is it an individual community issue? And so when I say individual community, you can even go down even further and say, is it an issue for this particular subdivision or this particular area within this community? Step 2, identify specific problems to address. Where is there still work to be done on this topic or on this issue? Identify a point of action. So you and your team, you all are doing this together. Brainstorm some ideas about the kind of changes you like to see around this topic. So I could go back to the young lady I met who was having an issue with the water main break. What are some ideas about the kinds of changes you like to see around this topic? Well, I said before, the city she lived in was not the city she was getting her water source from. Her water source, her water and sewage came from a different city. So as a team, what would you like to see happen? Would you like to see that particular city, or would you like to know where that city is at as it relates to getting their own water and sewage system? Or would you like to see a better collaboration in between city A and city B as it relates to water within those two particular cities? See, had the community known their water and sewage had City A known that their water and sewage came from City B, which is just easily just letting the community know where your water comes from and make sure they, when people move in, they know that as well, the situation may have been resolved differently. So what do you want to see happen? Identify your advocacy target. Which agency or governing body has the authority to make the change and or provide the funding you are seeking? You may be seeking funding to bring in a community park. You may be in a city that has not one community park, nowhere for the children to go, nowhere to have a picnic. There's no park. So do we need funding? And if we do, where can we go? Is there a governing body who can assist us with that? If there is, who is it? Is there a nonprofit organization that can help us? Who are they? Who do we have? Gathering background information. What are the facts, the stats, the anecdotes, and stories that demonstrate the need for this work? When we go in to talk to people through our community organizing, and we want to take something to the legislator or to our mayor or to our alderman, we can't just go and say, hey, it's a problem, Ward 2, I need you to fix it. They're going to want to know, okay, what are the details? What are the facts? You know, when did you notice this? How did this start? You know, because I can give you another example. A lady contacted me about flooding in her area. And she had posted it all over Facebook, and she was bashing her community and the city she lived in. And when she contacted me, she was really just calling me like, I don't know what to do. My street is flooding. The waters are coming into my house. You know, I hate it here. And so I was like, well, have you contacted Public Works? Have you contacted the mayor's office? Have you contacted anybody within the city you live in to let them know of the water issues and the flooding within your neighborhood? She said, well, we've been contacting them for the past year. I said, okay, let me see what I can do. I picked up the phone. I went directly to the mayor. I said, how you doing, Mr. Mayor? I'm calling to ask you about these flooding issues in this particular part of a community. Is there any way we can get these people some assistance? The mayor told me, oh, we've already fixed the flooding problem. I'll send someone down. When that particular person for Public Works went, they found out that it had been trash inside of the drainage ditch. So the water could not drain like it was supposed to. So the issue for the flooding was fixed, but because people have been, or maybe the wind blew it, we don't know how the trash got there. But because it was trash and also leaves clogging up the drain, the water was unable to flow. So people within the community were upset with the city because they thought the city never fixed the problem, when in reality, the problem was fixed. Someone just needed to unclog the drain. We also had to let the community members know. And I told this particular woman as well, I said, hey, let's just be careful, especially when we're raking leaves and doing the fall, to make sure that the leaves do not clog up the drainage ditch that is in front of your house. And let's just be very mindful of trash. You know, let's try to keep our streets clean, because the trash can also clog up the draining ditch. And I also asked her to let her neighbors know. So we must know the facts about what's going on. Identifying your personal strengths. What unique skills, insights, connections, or resources can you contribute to your team's goals? Everyone on your team has a different set of skills. Everyone on your team can provide resources in different areas. What is your unique set of skills? What is Teresa's unique set of skills? What is John's unique set of skills? This will help your team because now everyone does not have to focus on trying to accomplish the same thing, but we're all going to work together to accomplish the same goal. So one person may work very well or know someone at Public Works, and they can say, hey, I can pick up the phone and call this person. Another person may be very well at documentation, so they can say, hey, let me help you put together, and you're all going to do this together. I'll go ahead and write down the information for the plan. Let's talk it out. I'll record it. I'll send it to everybody else so we can review it. So when it comes to your team, what are your unique skills? Each individual has a unique set of skills. And with that, the team work together as a whole to get things done. Completing your advocacy plan. What are your advocacy goals? And those are our priorities. What are the steps you need to accomplish to meet these goals? What organizations or individuals could act as partners with you to accomplish these goals? And last but not least, tracking and accounting for outcomes. So you can get a tracking sheet. And within your tracking sheet, you have 3 columns. Column number 1, at the top, you can put goal. Column number 2, who was it assigned to? So you have a team. You may have a team of 10 or you may have a team of 3. But you put in that box, who was it assigned to? And then your estimated completion date.
The recording of this meeting is being recorded.
Have a timeline for your completion date to accomplish these goals or resolving some of the issues. You don't want things to linger on. What you don't want to do is someone call you 3 months later and say, hey, or if they see you and they say, hey, I remember you. I told you I had issues with A, B, and C. I never heard from you. You never got back with me. You never came by my house. I didn't see no results. What's going on? So have a timeline. So when you're talking to people in the community, 1, you don't have to make any promises to anybody. But what you can do is say, hey, I'm going to help out the best I can, and I will follow up with you. Give me a week or 2, or give me a day or 2. You know, it just depends on what type of resources you have within your team. I normally tell people, give me to the end of next week, and I'll get back with you. And I always get back with a person. I don't think it's not one person I have not gotten back with when community organizing. And what I do is, I don't necessarily write it in my pad. I kind of type it in my cell phone because I'm the type of person where I have probably 10 legal pads and they all have different stuff in them. But I know I'm always going to have my cell phone. So I type it in my cell phone and I put in the date, pops up automatically. So I can see when I spoke with that person and I told them I'll give you to the end of next week. So I know when it comes towards the end of next week, I need to have an answer for that person. If I contact that person back and I get their voicemail, I normally wait a day or 2 and I call them again just to make sure they got my voicemail. It's been times when I've contacted people 2 or 3 times. And so some people don't answer me because I have a 248 number. So I'll text them and they'll say, oh, thank you so much for texting me. I was wondering who that was with that out-of-state number. So just make sure if there are goals that you have spoken to people about achieving those goals or helping to resolve some of those issues, we follow up. That's all the community wants you to do, is to follow up and let them know you care and let them know that you can help them. They're not looking for you to make promises. They're just looking for someone to listen to and someone who can lead them in the right direction to get some of their issues resolved. So at this time, I'm going to let Stephanie Bundle talk about a advocacy plan that was completed. Stephanie, are you on the line? Are you ready?
I am indeed.
Okay. So can you share with us how much time we got, Mr. Stamps? Mr. Hull.
Let me unmute. About 30, 35 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Well, good morning, everybody. So I know Rashonda's calling on me, and you're probably wondering, well, who's Stephanie Bundle? I am Stephanie Bundle. I've been a social worker for about 30 years in my career. I am CEO of Lifestyle Education and Resource Services, and we're new babies on the block. So that baby is a toddler now, so the baby is toddling along, offering support tools and access to resources to people in our communities. So I've been in community organizing for many years now. I want to use an example to kind of fill in the framework for what Dr. Allen has just shared with us. What she's talking about today is organizing, how to organize, the beginning of organizing and becoming an advocate for the community. And for me as a social worker, that means building a trusting relationship with the constituents, a relationship where you're dependable, you're there, and you're collaborating with the community, you're considering the community and their culture, and you're including the community in the solution, in the plans for the solution. So in developing an advocacy plan, for the county in which I worked in some years ago, it was Davidson County, Nashville, Tennessee, raised my children there. So it was in Nashville, Tennessee. And an example for filling this framework was our domestic violence awareness and intervention model that we offered through Tennessee State University, through United Way, and through nonprofit organizations in the community to offer awareness, education, and intervention to those victims of domestic violence. So we wanted to create a program because we saw that there was a need. So step one in identifying and understanding the topic, we saw a need. How did we see a need? We saw the need because of the community voices. The community began to talk about the increasing incidences of domestic violence, and what does that really look like? You know, does it look as drastic as what we were seeing on the news, or what does it look like? So we had to define the topic. The topic was domestic violence, how to look at signs and symptoms. Who does this topic affect? It affected men and women in that community, in the Davidson County area in large numbers at that time. What is the scale of the topic? This is not just a local problem, but a national and an international problem. It's a problem all over. We have months dedicated to this cause. So with that information, we started looking specifically in step two. Where is there still work to be done on this topic? Well, in the inner cities of our communities. And how did we find that out? We found that out through community members. We began cultivating through what I call, or what we as social workers call, the GIM model. That's the generalist intervention model of engaging. That means we began to engage the community because guess what? The community knows what it wants. The community wants to grow. The community wants to be involved. And the community has a culture of operating that we need permission to enter in. We need permission, and that means, you know, earning the respect, earning the trust, building the relationship. So we began listening to the voices of victims of domestic violence, and they began telling their stories and how they and their friends were impacted by this topic of domestic violence. So then after we listened, we identified a point of action. We need to educate more people on the early signs of domestic violence, that it doesn't have to wait until the paramedics are called. That let's define unhealthy relationships. Let's start defining just different aspects and create an initiative around educating community members on what it looks like. You may not be affected, but you can see clearly that your neighbor is, based on those ideas. So we start tossing around ideas to put together a program and initiative through Vanderbilt University and Tennessee State and other colleges around that idea. So we involved the community, and the community was very important. In fact, we let them lead. We just coordinated as they led the way for this initiative. Then we, as I said, we into three. We started brainstorming some ideas about the kind of changes we'd like to see around the topic of domestic violence. Well, we said that it was important to educate not just the victims, but families, and the community about what this looks like and the impact of this, the impact of this topic. And then we identified the Advocacy Target, which agency has the authority to make the change and provide the funding or to provide the resources for us that we saw. Well, we had 2 universities that backed us. We had the police. We got the police and the authorities involved in just educating and sharing their experience and sharing with the community what it looked like for them. So we had a night of remembrance. We gave honor to those who had been victims and succumbed to this topic, to domestic violence. We educated, we shared stories. And how did we do that? We gathered the background information, and we sought people that had experienced then, and we gathered statistics, not just locally, but nationally, because we wanted people not to feel alone or isolated. And so those anecdotes, those stories that connected people to this coming cause of overcoming and being educated was really vital to this initiative. And then we identified people with personal strengths. Now, I work with Rashonda. Let me, just as a side note. So the first thing I said to Rashonda, I said, okay, here's what I can do. I can volunteer. I am not good with administrative stuff. Okay, that's what I can't do. So we got the kind of relationship where I could trust her with my strengths and my weaknesses. I said, now this is where I'm strong. This is where I'm not as strong. So we're gonna have to get other resources for those other areas. And we started identifying strengths on our teams, our Vanderbilt team, our Tennessee State team, our United Way team. And we broke it up into, well, we'll do this part, we'll do that part, we'll do the marketing, we'll do the social media when social media was just starting. We'll do public, we'll publicize it. And then we administrators who kept records. So everybody talked about how they could contribute to this initiative, the Night of Remembrance for Domestic Violence. And then we completed that advocacy plan. And that's where we are. We completed the plan. The goal was to educate, inform, advocate, and provide resources for those who have been affected by domestic violence. So I talked about the other organizations. We had Senator, I don't know if you know Senator Thelma Harper. She was the first Black senator in Tennessee area in the state Senate in Tennessee, and she was a part of this initiative. My sorors got on board. It was just really people just started coming on board because it was a good cause for the community, made a difference in the community, and we started collaborating. And we considered the culture in which we live. So the culture had to take the lead, the way that the community did things, and we had to honor that culture's need of survival and how they survived. We had to respect who they were, even in the process, and we had to hear their voices. That was really important. And then we had people keeping record on what we did and the progress that we made, so that the next time we did it, they've done it every year since. So every year, we have a record of what we've done, and they try to build upon that year after year after year. So that's an example of developing, organizing, and advocating, being a voice, not just for, but being the voice of the community. Because sometimes we have to be careful not to speak for them, but speak on behalf of them. Say what they're saying, communicate what they're saying, just in case somebody's not hearing it. We have to be a responsible voice for our community members concerned. As Rashonda said, she talked about, I've been doing boot work with her on the ground, door to door. And so what we're hearing is a lot of issues surrounding a topic that is formulating, and that's those drainage, public works issues coming to the forefront, and we hear those voices. And so we have to remember this is the concern of the community. This is a priority for them. And we need to begin to organize around what's a priority for our community members. Any questions so far?
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. So I'm going to go back to this slide. I want everyone to take the opportunity, if they want to screenshot it, take a picture of it. If you haven't by now, you can use this as a working document to help develop your advocacy plans. But what I want everyone to do on the line is to know that regardless of the topic, you can create the advocacy plan. Stephanie gave an example of a domestic violence advocacy plan because they noticed that it was a need to intervene because there was a lot of going on, not with just in one individual community, but throughout the nation. I gave an example throughout the presentation as it relates to people have issues or concerns with public works. So you can use this advocacy plan regardless of what the issue or what the topic may be. But what I want everyone to do is, and I'm just going to go backwards on this slide, because I want you to look at the topics that were listed. And I want you to just pick out what is the main priority that you would like to see someone in your community advocate for, that you can advocate for on this particular list. What is the main priority? Would anyone like to share?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, this is Walter. I'm listening. I'm out campaigning. So I've got you on mute, but I don't have any questions. I'm enjoying it. I'll probably look at your presentation once I get back, but I'm just trying to, we're having a big garage sale, so I'm just walking around.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to put,
Hello?
oh, yes, ma'am.
Recycling facility.
Okay, recycling facilities. So can you see how you can develop a team and kind of put an action plan in to help with gaining the resources for a recycling facility within your area? Can you see yourself doing that?
I see myself doing it, but I'm trying to figure out. I've been kind of doing it for several years, about 4 years, but I'm trying to figure out how to enlarge it and fill in some blank spaces like logistics and that kind of thing. So
Okay.
there may be some pieces missing in my plan.
It may be a few pieces, or it just may be the resources that you are connected to. For example, my son, he's 17, and he's big on climate reality. He's big on saving energy and things like that.
Right.
So he was able to get in contact, or he had the opportunity to go to Atlanta, Georgia, and go to one of the leadership trainings that Al Gore and Reverend Barber puts on. But not saying that that's something you need to do, but it may be some resources out there that you haven't tapped into yet. So it's just getting those resources, and then to get the community involved. It's that grassroots organizing, having those town hall meetings, having those forums that people can come to and discuss and talk about, because it's going to take more than you to bring in the recycling facilities or having resources provided for recycling. I want to say within his presentation, I know I live in Byron, and we don't necessarily have a recycling facility, but he was able to actually tell us exactly how many recycling facilities there were in the state of Mississippi. He was also able to tell us exactly where you go, or how different communities have like days where they can drop off particular things. So you don't have to put it on your curb or things like that. So what I will do is put my information in the chat, because I'm just gonna go look in his presentation and see what some of his resources were. Let me see. I will put my cell phone number in here. Let me see. And I will say it out loud too. Is area code 248 470 2964.
Okay, repeat that again.
Area code 248 470 2964.
Okay.
And what I will also do is I will send the presentation to Mr. Stamps and Mr. Hull. That way, everyone who is listening today can get a copy of the presentation. Is that okay? With you all to send that out?
Yes, and we'll put it project Facebook page.
Okay, awesome. Does anyone else have anything they would like to share?
Yeah, this is Petite.
In Tupelo, immediately after this meeting, I'm meeting with 2 other people, and we're about to start a grassroots police complaint committee. And this information that you gave us this morning is really helpful, because now I can walk in the room about 10:15 and tell them we're going to develop an advocacy plan. But we want to go beyond harassment and racial profile. Our advocacy is community-oriented policing. There's money for it. There are resources for it. And we want to turn our law enforcement agencies in this area in the direction of very, very formal COPS training and COPS implementation.
Okay, Mr. Hull, I know it's one other person that wants to talk, but there are also social justice, equality, and equity training that law enforcement agencies can go through, or any agency. I've actually had the opportunity to provide those type of practices and get trained on it. So just let me know if you're interested in some of that information, because we all know the society we live in is not socially just for everyone. So I would look into social justice practices as it relates to law enforcement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And there was someone else getting ready to speak.
Oh yeah, Petite. I'm on this list. I'm looking at services, multicultural diversity. That's something that I am focusing on in my race as well.
Okay, so can you explain the details of what that would look like within your community if implemented?
Yeah. So what I've thought of so far is I noticed that we do a lot of things like festivals. We do the jazz festival, and we do the fine arts festival. But I was thinking something about like a multicultural festival where we can bring all the cultures together in Ridgeland and showcase. It can be their food, it can be their talent, but bring everybody together in a spot where I guess we can make them feel, all cultures feel included, and let them know that the city is thinking about them.
So it's kind of like an Epcot,
Right.
For those who've been to Epcot, every area within Epcot is a different culture.
Right.
So you get to visit these different areas by only being in one place.
That's right.
So the Division of Education, and it's also been at Tupelo College, and it's also been other colleges and other schools and other communities that have done the same thing. Dr. J was very instrumental in hosting a cultural diversity fair for her students one particular year. I've done it with my classes as well. where each student has to pick an area of the country and present it for other students within the institution. We've actually taken the project to different elementary schools, Head Starts, child care facilities, and things like that, because it's very important that we learn about our culture and learn about cultural diversity. So I think that's an excellent idea. Like I said, be sure to get that advocacy plan so you can get a team of people and you all can put that together. And let me know, because I'm coming. When you do it, I'm coming. I want to be there. I want to see it, because I don't have to drive all the way to Florida to go to Epcot. I could just come where you are, right? Can I do that?
I was about to say, I would call you too. Yep.
Okay, you can call me anytime. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, Ms. Bundle, did you have anything else you wanted to share?
I think that what you're talking about is very valuable. I think that it's important to let the community lead. I was just thinking as you were talking and people were sharing what the concerns are. If you're not, that's an easy answer to come across. You know, sometimes we wonder, what are the concerns of our community? And the key is ask the community, you know, as you go door to door, ask them. They will tell you what the need is. They will tell you what the priorities are, and they will tell you what the goals are. And our job is to collaborate with them in being instrumental in creating strategies to make that happen, as you will be talking about more about on next week. So I'm excited about that. Thank you so much.
So let's say you decide to have a town hall meeting. Within your town hall meeting, you could pass out the need sheet. But how do you know where in the community people are asking for these needs? Very simple. Within your sign-in sheet, of course, you don't necessarily have to get their first and last name. That's just up to you. You could just get the community they live in, their needs, or maybe the zip code they live in. There's different ways that you can gather that information and aggregate it. But I'm going to come back to what I said in the very beginning of the presentation. What do we know about community organizing? So we all came in with our own idea of what community organizing is. We all had some concerns and we wanted to learn more about community organizing. But what did we learn about community organizing? Does anyone want to share what they learned today about community organizing?
Well, I learned from your presentation that it can be really almost, for lack of a better expression, scientific. I mean, there are some very specific steps that need to be taken, and in order for it to be successful, those steps should be taken in a very sequential order to make sure that you get the right desired outcome. So that's what I learned. That I can tell you, I've been doing community organizing since I was 17. So you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you really need today with a couple of areas, just to make sure that the community is engaged the way it should be engaged. And we are, as Sister Bundle said, we are letting the community lead as opposed to leading the community. So thank you.
And you always have to follow up. It is so important to follow up. Even once you get your team, you go into the community and you start having town hall meetings. If you just ask for everyone's address when they sign in, always follow up with the results. Always, always, always. Because people just want to know that you care. You care about the community, especially if you're a leader within your community. They will back you up. They will go to, what people say, they go to war with you, as long as they know that you care about their community. So do anyone have any lingering questions that they still have about community organizing as it relates to organizing and advocating? because next week we'll talk about communicating and evaluating. But are there any questions out there about organizing and advocating, the first two steps of the community organizing plan? Okay, Mr. Hull, if no one has any questions, I am finished. I got it.
Amazing job.
Less than an hour and a half. So I know people want to put the boots on the ground and get out there and get to work, because I'm one of them that's going to put my boots on the ground in about 30 minutes or so. So I tried to get it all in as quick as I could, but still give you all a lot of details.
Well, great job. Could you put that PowerPoint, is there some way you can share the PowerPoint with the group?
I was going to send it to you all.
Okay.
Because I don't have it in a Google slide where I can put the link in. What's easier for you all? For me to drop it in Gmail and give you the link, or just give you the actual presentation?
You can just email it, I guess.
Okay. I'll do that once we get off.
Well, wonderful. I mean, I was overjoyed now. I mean, because when you take things, when somebody breaks it down step by step and says, hold on, this is not just an art, but a science as well. And as Pastor Hull kind of alluded to, I'm just extracting kind of what he said, that, we've been doing pieces of this, and then someone comes in with the science to it. It's like you've been putting elements together for a long time, and you come in with the periodic table.
I look at it as we can be so effective if we just have all the nuts and bolts to put it together. Oftentimes we come in, we don't read the instructions, we put the table together, or we put the TV stand together, we stick the TV stand, we stick the TV on the TV stand close during the whole thing falls apart, right? So
or you put it together and like, where did those 5 screws go? They were in that box. Those screws were in that box for a reason. They didn't give you any extra. Where did those pieces go? And then you get way down the road and realize that, you know what? Those extra pieces were in there for a reason. If I only had read the instructions.
If I only read the instructions, and guess what? Now your TV stand leaning. You don't want to take it apart and put it back together again. So how effective could the community be? How effective could we all be if we just had those nuts and bolts? We could change the community, we could change our state, we could change our nation if we just come together with the nuts and bolts. So thank you all for allowing me to present today. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, Pastor Hull, after all that, I yield to you.
Well, let me tell you why I'm excited. Because earlier, when Dr. Allen and I were talking, she said, I've got to expand these presentations. So with what we have today, I'm really looking forward to September, because I believe that she'll have the kind of time that she needs to really give us an expanded view of what community organizing is all about. I must tell you, I'm excited because Dr. Allen, you have literally like what Brother Stance was saying. I've been doing stuff for literally for 50 years. And I'm going to admit on this call today, I didn't even know what I was doing up until now. And that's a beautiful thing. I was doing it, but I didn't really know what I was doing. But now you put it in, and you framed it in such a way that I really feel like over the past 50 years, I've been on the right track, and we've been doing it. But now I know how to do it in such a much more formal way. And like I said, in such a much more sequential order, in order to get the best desired outcome. So thank you very much. I mean, I'm excited. My heart is filled with joy.
Well, again, I appreciate everybody's talents, and this definitely takes us to where we are as an organization. We're going to continually need talent to move us all forward, because what we don't want in Freedom Democratic Party is for our leaders to be our lead. We want to continue to expand beyond the capacity of each one of us to be better, to be greater, because it would be a failure of us to not continually grow, continue to progress. And because if we don't grow and progress, our independent voice inside of politics in America diminishes down, and other people grow beyond us. I believe that that's where we are in politics in America, is that our leaders have become our leads, and other groups, and nothing against those groups, they've just continued to progress economically or socially. You know, a lot of times, a lot of folks rail against other groups, whether it be the LGBT groups or the other groups, progressive groups that are out there, or the environmental groups. And so what about Black folks? Well, I think that we've allowed our leaders to be our leads, and those other movements and groups have continued to progress forward because they're continually moving versus just being stagnant. And I believe that in order for Black America, or in order for Black America to grow, we got to allow more of our talent to progress forward. So anybody who would like to continue to help in this journey, you're welcome to participate, not just on the call, but actually facilitate things that we're going forward with in the future. Pastor Hull and I spoke about that earlier today, about, you know, continuing to just navigate talented folks into the forefront so that our overall work product can be much better. You know, so because I know that I'm halfway decent at executing, but I'm not necessarily the best teacher. And so if we can just all continue to work together, we'll make each other better as we move forward. I wanted to also ask, for those who want to call, anybody have any questions? I know we had some runoffs this past week, and anybody have any questions about the runoffs, or some things go one way or the other, and you wanted to kind of work through some issues? Anybody have any issues they need to kind of talk through before we get off the air? Well, great. Everybody has successful, well-run campaigns with no problems. And so I yield to Pastor Hull to close us out. But again, the link to that Zoom call with the Pan-African Caucus of the African Union is in the chat. And if anybody would like to participate, it'd be a great learning and networking experience for you. And I yield to Pastor Hull to close us out.
Well, thank you, Brother Stamp. Let me say that several times, Councilman Representative Stamps has alluded to the Freedom Democratic Party. And this would be a good time to close by saying, eventually, what we would like to do down the road is to turn the Freedom Democratic Party into some kind of a viable organizational force. That doesn't mean that we're going to abandon the formal Mississippi Democratic Party, but it does mean that we've got to start developing our own solutions and our own properties, our own priorities for ourselves. And so I want to thank Brother DeKeither Stamps for continuing to talk about the Freedom Democratic Party, because that was the genesis of the freedom movement in Mississippi. And I know that when I was a child, talking about being 17 years old and 15 and 14, that was a large part of what I was doing back then. Dr. Aaron Henry was one of my mentors. I grew up under his feet, and yeah, I only was in the room with Miss Fannie Lou Hamer once, but a lot of the members of the Freedom Democratic Party are part of my DNA. And so I'm really looking forward to teaming up with Brother Stamps, you on this call as we began to, first of all, and I want to plant the seed, we want to have a statewide summit somewhere down the road. I don't know if it's going to be an in-person convention or a Zoom summit or what, but we do want to have a statewide summit and talk about those things. Let me finish up because I got to go to another meeting, but got to say this. My 25-year-old son, who's doing quite well, trying to save some money, trying to buy a brand new car, almost cash money. He lives with us. And we talk all the time about politics. And Josh said something the other day that really caught my attention. He said, what are the Democrats doing for Black folks? What are the Democrats, or what is Joe Biden and the Democrats doing for Black folks? LBGT, ladies, women. And immediately when he said it, my mind said, Freedom Democratic Party, we've got to develop an agenda for us that's built in for us, that's built around us, and that's built out for us. So I'm not going to get on the soapbox, but thank you, DeKeither, for continuing to drop that nugget of the Freedom Democratic Party, because I believe that is the way that we should be headed, and we need to have a vehicle to facilitate change and progress for us. So does anybody have any final questions? I know DeKeither normally goes around the table and calls people's names. I'm not going to do that, but if you have any questions or comments, we're not going to cut you short.
Anybody got any comments or questions? Anybody? Well, I'll just say this, Pastor Hall. Oh, how you doing, ma'am?
I would just like to say, this question is directed to Councilman Stamp.
Okay.
I've been trying to call you for 2 weeks.
What? On my cell phone?
Well, when we get off the call, would you please call me?
I'm gonna put my phone number. I'm gonna put my phone number in the chat. There you go.
Thank you.
That's my cell phone number. If you've been calling anything else, you probably wasn't gonna get me. Well, that's my cell phone number in the chat box there.
One more time, I missed the last number.
It's on in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you call anything else, you probably was calling the wrong number. But I'm like Tupac. I ain't hard to find.
Anyway, very, very resourceful project here. I'm enjoying everything, getting a lot of information to help me in the venture.
Okay. Let me end by saying this. This is all in an effort to get us to a point of freedom. Now, freedom does not mean that you can be free how somebody allows you to be free. Freedom means that you can be free how you decide to be free. And when it comes to politics, sometimes we get locked into, well, this is what this ideology is, and this is what this ideology is. But that's not freedom. It's not freedom. Freedom does not mean that you can reside in the Republican Party and you speak this language, or you can reside in the Democratic Party and speak this language. Freedom means that you can reside in yourself and you can determine, what you want to say or how you want to say based on your own heart and your own feelings. That's what freedom means. Freedom doesn't mean that you can communicate based on how other folks say you are allowed to communicate, or you can take positions based on how other folks say you are allowed to. Freedom means that you can take a position that you sleep good at night and you're not, kind of looking sideways at yourself in the mirror because you're trying to be locked into somebody else's reality. So that's our journey in the Freedom Democratic Party. So let's get to work and get out there and get after it, y'all. God bless. Godspeed. We'll see y'all next week.
Thank you, Dr. Allen, for sharing. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you. You all have a great weekend.
Everybody be blessed.
You too.